shukur, atitir shaho. Trying to find the last syllable. Atititir. There it is. That's the problem. The sages headed by Shaunaka said, "O Lord, people's minds are naturally attracted to material sense objects, and similarly the sense objects in the form of desire enter within the mind. Therefore, how can a person who desires liberation, who desires to cross over activities of sense gratification, destroy this mutual relationship between the sense objects and the mind? Please explain this to us." Right? Sounds good, no? Sounds straightforward, sounds like what we want to know. The fun part is Krishna is going to tell him that that's not going to work. Right? So because of the point of anyonya, saying this is the mind is attracted by the sense and the sense objects, right? They're naturally attracted because you have the sense and then there's the sense object. They go together, otherwise the eye likes to see things. Does that make sense? And what is there, if it has the ability to be seen, then it is a manifestation of, how do you say? The tanmatra, the sensory element itself. Right? So from fire, you get sight, and then you get the eyes. Right? So fire, sight, and eyes are connected. So you can't separate them. But what's the question? When will they be separated? When will they be separated so we don't have the problem? Yeah, that's the point. They won't be. So that's why Krishna consciousness means not stopping something, but adjusting it and connecting it to Krishna. Because fire, the sense, and the sense object are not going to go away. But whether you're doing that looking for sense gratification or not, right, that's the key. If you don't look for sense gratification, you'll be liberated. If you look for Krishna's pleasure in it, then you'll have God. So the point is we look for opportunities for sense gratification. We don't want to miss an opportunity, right? So that's, what was that word we used? Compulsive. Right? It's there. Why wouldn't we take it? But you don't. That's the point. Haridas Thakur, right? The prostitute is coming, and sitting there all night, right? He's out in the middle of nowhere, and but he doesn't see it as an opportunity, right? For sense gratification. He sees it as an opportunity to preach. He's sitting here chanting, and here comes someone, and now he can preach, right? So sit down and listen to the chanting, right? Chanting like this, like that. And so many nights of this, and then they get purified, right? Hearing the pure devotee chanting 3 lakhs of names. You know, that's a lot of names, right? And so then after that, then they take up Krishna. So he saw an opportunity, but not for sense gratification. That's the difference. Whatever situation is in, the devotee looks for the opportunity to please Krishna, and the materialistic mind looks for the opportunity to get some enjoyment. So it's just a matter of the mind is going to look for ways to enjoy. That's all it does. Right? It's not going to do something else. But the question is, who's enjoying it? Yours or Krishna's? Right? And then you have the in-between, of course. You know, it's not for me, it's for someone else, right? But it's just the same extended sense gratification. Not your senses, it's their senses. But it only becomes spiritual when it's Krishna's senses. So we can see why these processes, why we say so strongly about the impersonalists, just stop everything. You know, the karmis, oh, they're doing this, you have to change the nature to stop. No, none of that will work. Right? So the karmi and jnani don't understand. Why? Because they don't actually understand the nature of the soul. They don't actually understand. Because in their point, the mind is illusion. So why do we have to deal with it? But our point is, no, the mind's not illusion. It may be functioning in illusion, but it's not itself an illusion. It's there, it exists. The illusion is thinking what you're dealing with is separate from the Lord. This makes sense. Right? So, the situation, not looking for the opportunity, right? Because an opportunity is there and it would be wasted. Right? But there's no need of that. It's a matter of, look, if there's something for Krishna, great. If not, there's so many situations, right? And Bhaktivinoda Thakur mentions about how the mind functions. Is the senses, because they're connected to the sense objects. Right? That's what they do. So at any moment, then the senses are pulling in all this information from everywhere. I think the modern statistic says, I think it's 40,000 bits of information. I forget if it's, I think it's a minute. But it's a lot. So that's the first thing, is it's all brought in. So the mind is, Then the second thing is the mind reduces it down to what's important at the time. So then, because having so many bits of information, only certain things are important to you now. What things you could get some benefit from. Right? Like the benefit of not being run over by a truck. So when you hear a very large horn and there's kind of a rumbling, that generally takes precedent over something else, right? So then the next stage is then the mind will access the memory of the intelligence and see what is past experience of, screeching horns and rumbling noises from a very close proximity, especially when one is standing on the road, right? If you're in your house and you hear this, then, look around for some, machine that looks kind of alive, right? If it looks like the governor of California, you got problems, right? Get out of your house. But if you're on a road, then you might have more experience, right? That makes sense. Okay. So, then the next, it will then decide, it will then, make a decision based on that. Okay. Big screeching sound, large truck, flat as a pancake, every bone in your body broken, or or moving out of the way, right, and avoiding all that, right. Pancakes are great, but not when you're the pancake. You eat pancakes, you aren't a pancake. So then the fifth stage is, so then it makes its decision about moving, and then the fifth is, then it tells the senses to move. Right? So everything that goes on, this is what the mind is doing. Yes?
This can happen in the conscious living into the unconscious order, or different situations?
What happens if there's a little kid on the road? Little kid. And then there's the horn and all that. Do they move? No. Why? Because there's no experience. So when the mind accesses the memory, there isn't anything. So why worry? But the thing, whatever you're absorbed in, that you have past experience. By doing that, that's fun, right? Like that. You get together with a friend and you poke them and then they chase you and it's fun to run around. So that's what they're doing. And so they're looking for opportunities to run around. So loud trucks, in their experience, aren't an impediment for running around. You know what I'm saying? So therefore they don't adjust. But while they're going, they're looking at this and that, and according to their experience, then they're, successful in running around or falling on their face.
There's a process that you just mentioned could happen. The person is unconscious that it's actually happening, and you just know the result.
It means until I mentioned this, were you ever conscious that this was going on?
No.
Okay, So that means that's what it's always doing. So whether you're conscious of it or not, if you're conscious of it, then you know you can be a little more involved. But still, the point here is that this is what the mind does. So the reason for going through that the mind and the senses and sense object are never at any point in time not going to be connected. Right? Okay, if you're asleep, you know, you're in a coma, maybe. But other than that, yes.
Just in the example of the truck, it's happening so quickly, like within the space of a second, that whole process is...
Yeah, but that's how quick the mind is. It means when we say the speed of mind, how long does it take for you to get from here to Sydney? Right? There's a moment, but that's it. That's all it takes. So that's how fast the mind moves. Right?
So it's difficult to get conscious of something that's happening, so like directly conscious of each.
Yeah, so that's why one needs to be practiced. One needs practice if there's a certain thing you want to develop. Because all it is you look for all these things. Does that make sense? Yes.
It appears that for different people, the mind is more quick or less quick. Is it correct?
That's just according to the karma. You know, is how the mind moves at that speed, but it's just a matter of what they do with it, because then you have to apply it, because then at that point, then you know the motor skills and other things like that. That's ability. So that may be, but the other stages go through quite quickly, because then that's where it's practically applied. So that's why you would need practice in certain things. But things like getting out of the way when there's something that you want to avoid, you've done since you're small. You know, it's time to take the medicine. You just, I'm out. It's all these things just happen. You're starting to be dressed and you're walking off. So that's been going on. And little kids, basically, all they do when they play is chase each other. Right? So that's it. And if you don't have anybody, you chase the dog, you chase the cat. So that one you're generally pretty good at. But other things you need to practice. Riding a bicycle, you get on it and there's a tree coming, so it doesn't really mean much to you. But once you hit it, now you have something in memory that, bicycle, tree, not good. Right? So then it adds. So then with practice, then okay, you avoid the trees. What about the fire hydrant? Grandma, the walker. All these things that you have to learn. So better the tree, right? Because you bump into the tree, you fall over, you curse. You bump into the old lady, she curses, right? And she's got a walker, she may hit you. So these things. Does that make sense? Okay, so the point is that they can't be separated. Here, the word anyonya is translated as of the mutual relationship between the sense objects and the mind. Right? So here's mutual relationships. These two, they connected, one after another, one dependent upon another, right? Because it's the mind, the sense object, and the sense object, the mind. It says the one enters the other. Right? The mind enters the sense object. It means it goes in and observes it and analyzes it, sees what it can gain from it. But then, if there's something there of attachment, of interest, then that sense object enters the mind. So there's a mutual relationship here. Right? Because that's what, when you mentioned that? Didn't we just read about one enters the other?
That's in the 11th canto. Krishna teaches that.
No, that's what we're discussing here.
In the form of desire, enter within the
Yeah,
mind.
enter within the mind. Yeah. Minds are naturally attracted to material sense objects, and similarly the sense objects in the form of desire enter within the mind. Like that. So we'll see these things come up. Right. Okay. Mutual relation between the sense object and the mind. It is extremely important for us to note that this verse outlines for us our understanding, the mechanics of material attachment. Right? So we see is that he's very thorough and very analytical. Right? So he's giving that this is the basis. The sense objects, the mind is entering the sense object, and therefore the sense object enters the mind. This is how attachment works. So Krishna says when you contemplate the objects of the senses, one develops attachment for them. Attachment means the sense object has entered the mind. So what we call attachment means that object has entered the mind. So if we contemplate Krishna, then Krishna enters the mind. We contemplate Maya, Maya enters the mind. Right? So the point of attachment is not the problem. The point of contemplation is, what do you contemplate? You know, what's your method? You know, well, how do you analyze it? That's the difference. So if you're in an environment, it means the whole environment is that of senses and sense objects. Right? It's just that certain ones we will consider valuable for our sense gratification. Right? Does that make sense? If it's for Krishna's sense gratification, it's not a problem. Right? Does that make sense? So, yeah. It means if somebody's engaged with the senses and it's for themselves, then we'll restrict who can be involved or not. Right? But if it's involvement of the senses with the sense objects, but it's in connection to Krishna, then generally speaking, we don't have a problem. Right? That makes sense? You know, the brahmachari is cooking for himself, big elaborate meal, then we'll have a complaint. But if he's cooking the same meal to offer to the deity, nobody has a complaint. So we define it because of opportunities for sense gratification. That's all. Because opportunities for sense gratification are very important to us, therefore that's what we look at, that's what we analyze. What topic is more sensitive, more provocative, more painful in the lives of devotees than material attachment? Right? But this is how it works. Simply, you contemplate it, it enters the mind. But you can't get rid of that process. Right? What is contemplated, you know, that's what enters the mind. If you don't want to enter the mind, don't contemplate. But that doesn't mean you won't contemplate something. So that's why the mind has to be engaged. Arjuna's thinking, I'll go to the forest and I'll just sit there. No, but then he'll contemplate what's going on and who's doing this and what's right and just there, and he'll be fighting anyway. Today I heard a Bhagavatam class. He remarked that even senior disciples of Srila Prabhupada have confided to him how difficult they find it to completely overcome the mind's attachment to material things. Now, through the pages of Srimad Bhagavatam, let us now try to see clearly just how attachment works. The puzzling nature of attachment. Yes, we all know from Gita that when we contemplate the Panchatan Matra, the 5 objects of the senses, Shabda or sound, Sparsha or touch, Rupa or visible form, Rasa or taste, and Gandha or smell, the mind becomes attached to those objects. Bhagavad Gita 2:62. Jayato Vishayan Pumsam Sangas Teshu Pajayate. Out of this relationship of mind and the sense objects, desire makes its appearance. Sangat Sanjayate Kama. Then you contemplate that, you know, that desire is there, then cultivating that, then it becomes need, and then you act. The Kumaras pointed out, so the point is when the mind is looking at something, if you see no opportunity for sense gratification, then no desire comes up, so the sense object doesn't enter the mind. So then no desire comes up, therefore no attachment, therefore no material. The Kumaras pointed out a dimension in this process that we may not have considered from our study of the Gita. It seems quite an insidious arrangement, but the fact is that the mind and the sense objects are made for each other. They fit together so seamlessly that the 4 great sages found no way to separate them, right? So that's their question. That they're so like one thing. How do you separate them? Because always remember is that whenever a description is given, there's the senses and the senses. The mind is always the 11th sense. Or the senses and the sense object, then the mind is still in the category. Right? So you have 10 senses, and then the mind is the 11th. Or you have the senses and the sense objects is 15, and the mind is the 16th. So they always go together. They're never separated. Yes?
And then why not to read another place? My bodies, they try to either separate it, stop it, if it's impossible. Like
if it's impossible, because they think it's an illusion. Well, their philosophy is impossible. So they're going to try to do the impossible.
And we fall prey to the same stuff.
We fall prey to the same thing. We fall prey to the same. Because something we don't like, then we want to stop it. But it's its nature, that's what it does. You know, like we said, the dog will bark. The point is so therefore, keep the dog outside, and it can bark all at once. Right? It's inside and it's barking at something that it thinks is not normal. So if it's in your living room, it's a disturbance. If it's outside in the yard, then it's less of a disturbance, but it at least lets people know not to come around. Right? If it's in the house, and you're coming by, then what's the problem? I can hop in the yard and do what I want because the dog can't do anything. But if the dog's in the yard, then I don't. So, you get more benefit, less sound, and more security. You know what I'm saying? So, but we have this idea, no, we'll stop the dog from barking. So that's always what we're doing. We said, you have something, oh, this is the problem, remove it. Right? That's how the modern system works. Right? Tonsils are swollen, remove them. Right? Teeth is this, remove it. Head's got to go to the psychologist. Head's a problem. Hey, remove it. I think it's called a lobotomy. So, invaded by the mind is the sense object, and so invaded are the sense objects by the mind. They're trying to precisely tell them apart is a profound challenge to the intellect. Right here. So so invaded are the sense objects by the mind. Bhakti Saraswati Thakur, when he's talking about the materialist, he says, when they look, he says, the sensuous gaze of inspection. Is what you're always looking, you're inspecting to see what I can get from it. And then if you find something, then it enters the mind. Consider for a moment the smell of puris being fried in ghee. As soon as you perceive that smell, your mind forms an attachment to it. This is good. But where is the good? It just comes as soon as it's smell, oh, that's that, and that's eating, that's taste, and this and that. Of course, unless you're a natural food freak, and then you go, oh, this is bad, and then go on the whole thing. So the same process happens, but just... Is the good of the smell objective, meaning that the vapors of the fried food outside you are themselves good? Right? Or is it subjective, meaning that the sensation inside you stimulated by the vapors is good? Right? After thinking about it a while, we'll most likely venture that the good in the smell is a result of the combination of objective and subjective factors. It means it has to have some elements that you can relate to. Therefore, you will say it's good. So this is also just, as it comes up, is why authority is so important. Because everything is just a generic aspect. You're going to take it and interpret it. And define it as good or not. So the problem comes is that since this process is going to happen, if you use what the Lord gives, then the good actually is progressive. And it'll be very useful in trying to redirect the mind in its endeavor. But if you make up your own, then the problem is that process not being complete, it's only what you want out of it in a whimsical way. The difficulty will come is that at some point you'll find it won't be favorable. Right? Because what's favorable, according to the Lord's directions, gives the best result. What's not favorable, according to the Lord's directions, always gives the worst. And the more unfavorable, the worse the reaction. So it'll always be a problem. Because the mode of ignorance always ends up in misery, distress, all these illusion, and all the different problems. We understand? So that's what we were talking about before, is that someone's done something wrong, and then you can say, oh, that's bad, and we should do this, and we should do this and this. But that's based on our own interpretation. What would the Acharya, what would Prabhupada do? Like that. And that's a different thing. What does Krishna say? Fine, let's accept that for starters. Okay, the combination, that means the two go together. Fine, we'll accept that for starters. Next question, is the good of the smell real? Yes, will be our answer as devotees to the Lord. The reality of the good smell is confirmed again and again by our collective experience. Right. Because in other words, what he's trying to get at is that element of good. Does that exist or not? It means you're frying the puris in the ghee, so then there's particles of the puri, in its process of cooking. In other words, when it's not much cooked, you don't smell it. As it gets cooked, you smell it. Right? You put some bread in the oven. When you first put it in, there's no smell. Maybe you get a smell of the oven when you open the door, but no smell of the bread. But as the bread gets cooked, then you smell it. Right? So there is the particles floating around, but that being good, is that inherently part of it? So technically it's not. But we'll say it is. But the point is that there is that concept of it because, yes, when Krishna smells it, what he says is good. That's good. Right? But if we put in line with Krishna, then it works nicely. If we don't, then we will come up with our own idea of good. But the good is just how your mind interprets it. So that's why if the mind's in line with Krishna, then it will interpret according to Krishna's direction, according to authority. And if not, it will be, according to our false ego, our own authority. Because we're the controller and enjoyer, so why we shouldn't be calling the shots. Does that make sense? So that's why we're so convinced that because I thought it must be right. But no, it's a generic thing. It depends on where it is. It's good or not. Yes.
Is it always in relation to happiness? Our happiness or Lord Krishna's happiness?
Yes, it's always, because you're always dealing with prayojana. Because our focus is where is the prayojana, where is the result. Right? It means now we're looking at analyzing what we're dealing with in the field in a much finer way. Right? Because see what he's doing, he's quoting Bhagavatam, right? And which part of Bhagavatam? 11th canto. So 11th canto is where it's really analytical. I mean, we saw from 2nd canto how analytical it is, but that's the foundation of analytical. 11th canto is then taking that to its very refined presentation.
Summarizing all the teachings.
Yeah, so whatever's there then is being brought together. But it's the same teaching, but it's just being given on it. Just like the 18th chapter is the same teaching as in the other chapters before that. But it's brought it to a very developed level. So here is, we're jumping from, which is a big distance, at the same time not, 18th chapter of Gita and, 11th canto of Bhagavatam. Now, if we hadn't finished the Gita, this wouldn't make as much sense. Because that analytical ability wouldn't have been as developed. When Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's disciples were frying up feast preparations for a Hare Krishna festival in Burma, the local people complained about the horrible stench. Burmese people consider a good smell to be that of fish sauce left to ferment inside a clay pot for 3 years. If the good of the smell of fried puris is a real substantial value, and not just a matter of personal attachment, how could the Burmese react as they did? Right? And the opposite, I think I mentioned, I was in Hong Kong and walked into our building, and in our building there was, you know, you have that, how do you say it? That's what you call it, the foyer, whatever it is, and then it goes off and it goes up different stairs. And
The lobby?
Yeah, lobby and stuff like that, but it's small, it wasn't big, but it's, and then I think residential was up above a certain amount, and for a couple of stories there was this, and so there was a restaurant cooking stinky tofu. It's called stinky tofu. That's what they call it, but I mean of Chinese. But, and then they take the stinky tofu and deep fry it. Right? You know? And so I'm wondering, what is this? It's like, you know, it smells kind of like, you know, deep fried garbage or something. You know? And so then, and I asked the guy at the elevator, I said, what's that bad smell? You know, and it's so obvious. It's not like it's, you know, I just got a faint glimpse and it goes away, and what was that? No, it's like overpowering, right? And he's going, I don't smell anything bad. It says, you know, it says the only smell is they're, you know, they're cooking in the restaurant. So, you see.
There's an Asian vegetable called durian.
Yes.
Smell.
Yes.
Similar.
What is it they say? Tastes like heaven, smells like hell.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't. It's like this. It's similar to a jackfruit. So it's better to eat a jackfruit. It's considered, it's habisha. It's like that. Durians, I think.
For China, it is said that, you know, they just said, for China, they just say that, you know, the people, local people, just put a pot in the water, and whatever comes out, they put on their pan, and whatever flies in the air, except for the flies, whatever they put on the pan. So, you know, stinky tofu. No, just the stinky tofu.
Yeah.
There are many.
No, but the point is that the consideration of what is, so it's not inherent, is this point. The good is applied. So that means then through samskar, you're going to say something's good or not. So your samskars are good, and then you'll have pious interpretation. Your samskars are not, you'll have an impious. And if your samskars are Krishna conscious, then you'll have that.
So as a spiritual sense perception, like frying glories or some of the incense, would they relate inherently to the soul, like even if they're
you could say yes, it would be inherently to the soul, because what's the consideration? If you smell the puris cooking, you'll say it's nice, right? We're just taking that as a basis here that everybody would be cooking. Okay, so why is it nice? What are you thinking of? Eating, right? So it's not Krishna, but because the devotee, so then you're thinking of prasad, so indirectly it gets there, it gets better. But the consideration is you're like that. But means on the transcendental platform, one's not looking for anything for oneself. And so therefore it's then puri is something to offer to Krishna. So therefore the smell is good because it's something offerable to Krishna. And if it's not something offerable to Krishna, then it's not of any importance.
So if someone has aversion to the smell of puris or incense or whatever,
But what's their point?
does that mean that they're just so covered that there's no
Yeah, it would be harder for them.
attraction?
Yeah, because then the natural pious thing. I mean, still, then they take their, you know, whatever it is that, you know, they're going to have to, the fish sauce will have to go, you know, like that. Even if it's not stinky, right? You know, so it's, I mean, even if it's been in the clay pot for only 3 days, still, you know, it'll have to go. But the principle is that they'll just have to take whatever is within their realm that is connectable, right? Does that make sense? And as we discussed before, but that's not our point now, is a different topic, is the principle of what they take is that this is something nice. It's still Krishna. Right? That experience of that niceness. So that's why the point is that subtlety. We're dealing with the original cause. Right? So that good is actually connected to the original cause. So there is good, the sense of good is there, but that's Krishna. Then there are the forms Lakshmi takes, knowing Krishna's desires on how to obtain that good. Right? Then that's reflected here. And then we accept or reject based on our own ideas. You know what I'm saying? So that's why it's not going to be something you can just say it's there. It's elusive. Why? Because that's Krishna. Krishna's like that. He's there, but he's not there. He's the cause, but at the same time. Because the whole point of the cooking and is it smells good, it tastes good. That's the bottom line. And so, but that's Krishna. He is the taste. Does that make sense? So that's why then one's interpretation of the good or the quality has to be in line with Krishna, because it is Krishna anyway. So to argue otherwise would be foolish. That means one is not understanding the philosophy.
If something's good exists because of Krishna,
right,
then bad exists in relation to what doesn't please Krishna.
Yes. It's just the opposite. It means you have light, that's substance. Darkness is just absence of light.
So then the material world, this is bad because it doesn't please Krishna. The mentality of this.
No, material illusion doesn't please Krishna. Material world is just one of his energies. And so she does her service to please Krishna. So Maya herself as a person is pleasing Krishna. Like that.
Just the illusion, the reflection.
Yeah, but we thinking that it's something for us to control and enjoy, that's the problem. But the point is we have a relationship with Krishna. So if we'll just recognize the relationship wherever it'll start, then that's good, right? You know, the parent would like the child who's has ran away from home and has nothing to do with him, won't talk to him for years. He would like just to start anywhere. He'd love it to be them back in the house and interacting fully, but they'll start anywhere. Just a phone call. Okay, just something, some communication, some consideration. That's a start. So you don't call that a full-blown parental-child relationship, right? But it's a start, right? Because it's recognizing relationships moving forward. You understand? So in the same way as that you've recognized Krishna in your life, that's a start, that's the yoga. That it's mixed and this is not pure devotional service, that's secondary. It's relationship started, so it's good. Right? But pure devotional service is what you want to get to, because then the relationship is in its natural form.
If we take a smell like puris, and we enjoy that before it's offered to Lord Krishna, is there some offense in that? If we think immediately of our sense of such.
Yeah, but then afterwards you correct that. Oh, that's for Krishna, and then you stop. So the point is it may have been there, but then it's
and as you get more advanced, you stop even that. You immediately smell something and think only.
Because you don't look for why is what's the problem? Why did the problem come up? Because we're looking for sense gratification. So an opportunity comes up, immediately we grab it. Then because we want to be devotees, so then we think, no, that's not correct. Krishna's first. So Krishna's involved in it. So then it becomes purified.
So the more you purify, the more you just think of Krishna, and that's
Mother just showed us, she looks around. All she is looking for is opportunities to please Krishna. That's all she sees. She doesn't see something. So that's why she is the head of that line. Because when she looks, she can see the maximum whatever the parental Ras can gain out of a particular situation to connect it to Krishna. Radharani is the head of the conjugal line. Like this. So, because when they see the situation, because situation simply means opportunities. Right? Does that make sense?
opportunities for enjoyment.
Yeah, opportunities for enjoyment. So, therefore, one looks for it. And it means enjoyment, yeah, it just means, I was looking at it here as a way of sambandha, so you're looking for opportunities, because with that then, because some people will emphasize more on the knowledge of it, contemplating it, some on the endeavor, some on getting the results, some on the experience of all that. So there's going to be different aspects of the enjoyment. So that was being given is that that is your opportunities. You have a situation, what are the opportunities? You know what I'm saying? It's like, if you remember, visited, we were in San Francisco for Rath Yatra. So then the father who were there drove up with some friends, and then it was arranged, so he came, got in the car with them. So immediately he said, okay, here we are in San Francisco. Where can we go? What can we do? It was immediately, okay, San Francisco, what are the opportunities? And they don't really know, I mean, how many times did they, they're from LA, how many times they start driving around and looking around. So what do you see? We've heard of things, oh, hey, there's the wharf, there's this, there's that. So they start looking. So it's just immediately a situation is there and you start digging. So either something's obvious and you take it, or you start looking for it. And if you don't find anything, that situation is San Francisco. And then you move to the next one. Does that make sense? Does a smell exist in any way, good or bad? So now we start to get into the thing, because we say it's there, because now you can see where the problem comes, because unless one is theistic and understands God, and that's Him, then one will naturally say it doesn't exist, we just create it, so there is no good or bad, right? But then what does that give rise to? Since we're dealing atheistically, therefore, whatever I think it is, I define it. That's what they want to get to. That's why it's very dangerous. So it'll always go off, but as soon as the theistic is there, yes, it's good or bad, because there is an inherent good or bad. Like that. But it's God defines it. But if you're not looking at it from God's perspective, then you call the shots.
That would mean that the devil can exist without God.
The devil can't exist without God, yes.
They say there's no good or bad, it's just how we think, but ultimately, so then it would be bad if you came and hurt them or something.
Yeah.
So they do have there isn't.
It's 100%. All it is they're trying to get you to see from their perspective, because at least, how you say, supposedly, someone who studied the psychology or the psychiatry, right? The psychology is which one's the doctor? Psychiatrist. Okay. So psychology is the methodology how the mind works, and the psychiatry is then how that would connect to the chemical influences of it.
Psychiatrists prescribe medicine.
Yes. Okay. So then. So they technically, in their mind, or in their school, they're certified sane. Right? So that's their confidence, that they're sane. And so what they're trying to get you to do is perceive things in some way like them. Of course, you can never fully perceive, because you're the layman of their profession. But so when you perceive it like they see it, at least see it for their job, then that's what the thing. So it's purely subjective. They say they're objective, but they're not at all. It's like you said, as you're laying on the couch, they're sitting in their chair, and this and that. If you suddenly got up and, jumped on them and their chair fell over and everything, they go, what's going on, you crazy? But God says, no, I was just, like you said, follow the mind, what you felt like. Do what you feel like. Nah, I felt like that. But that's not normal, so then there is a standard.
It's inherently good and bad.
Yeah, There's inherently, because God's in everything, so you can't get away from it. And the soul has a nature, so it means we'll get into that. There's 7 Bhakti